Hello folks, this is Steve AB4L. You know I like to let my mind wander. And I'm going to do that now. I'm going to take you on a little trip. Now my tab is /dot.org. I'm not promoting anything, I'm not recommending anything. News for nerds. Afghanistan. We all love Afghanistan. Afghanistan hit by nationwide internet blackout as the beloved Taliban cuts fiber optic cables. They're the cousins of the Houthis. The Houthis learned from them. The Taliban have imposed a nationwide telecommunications shutdown in Afghanistan, severing fiber optic connections, cutting off internet, mobile, and satellite services as part of a morality measures. BBC. It's an interesting picture. He's looking at his little cell phone or tablet, and he's in front of a case where they've got money for sale. Can you see it? International news agency AFP says it lost contact with its office in the capital, Kabul, including mobile phone service. Mobile internet and satellite TV have also been severely disrupted across Afghanistan. Since seizing power in 2021, the Taliban have imposed numerous restrictions in accordance to their interpretation of Islamic Sharia law. Sharia law is a broad Islamic code of conduct based on the Quran and the Sunnah, which is the teachings and practices of Prophet Muhammad. The Sunnah are, and Hadiths, I heard Muhammad say, I saw Muhammad do. There were others who were witnesses also, so that they can remember what he did as the prophet, and they should emulate. So Sharia law is a code of conduct which provides principles of spiritual, personal, and public life, including how to worship, marry, divorce, conduct financial transactions, I want to emphasize that, and even dictates the punishments for criminal offenses. For example, no, I won't say it. So Sharia law. The Taliban and Sharia law. So they're in a total blackout. The Taliban, the hardline Islamist group, retook control of Afghanistan in 2021 in a lightning advance that lasted 10 days. And that Biden abetted. Women and girls have also been particularly hard hit. Now, I'm reading this for a reason. They are barred from accessing education beyond the age of 12. with one of their last routes to further training cut off in late 2024 when midwifery courses were quietly shut down. What's midwifery? My father would be able to tell you that. He was born at home. Of course, my father's not alive. My father was born in the house I grew up in. Midwifery is the healthcare profession focused on supporting individuals and families through pregnancy, childbirth, and postpartum periods. That's after the child's born. Now, you see, I see connections. So I read this article on the BBC, but I made the mistake of scrolling too far. BBC article, September 21st, 2025, titled, "My 3 boys starved to death. I hope angels bring them home," says Afghan wife, mother. I can't say for sure how old he is. He has a naturally gray beard. She's the mother. Now this is a matter of interpretation. Basically, her face is covered for modesty under Sharia. What do you think the age difference between them is? If you were to look closer at the photo, it's a minimum of 30 years. There's no wrinkles on her face. The minimum is 30 years. Keep that in mind. Gusts of wind blew dust up off the ground as Ghulam Hamid Mohidin and his wife Nazo walked toward the graveyard where all their children are buried. They showed us the graves of the 3 boys they lost in the past 2 years. 1-year-old Rahmat, 7-month-old Kortan, and most recently, 3-month-old Faisal Ahmad. Now, what they're really saying is, the 7-month-old, he was 7 months old when he died, but it doesn't say how long ago. All 3 suffered from malnutrition. "3 million children in peril. There are days the couple goes without food, these 2 here. They break walnut shells. They break walnut shells for a living in the Shidi settlement just outside the city of Herat in western Afghanistan and receive no help from the Taliban government or from NGOs, non-governmental organizations." It's the graves of their children. Take a look in the background. They make a living breaking walnut shells. Next time you eat walnuts or other similar shelled nuts, take a look at the list of countries they come from. The malnutrition emergency is compounded by other factors too. A severe drought that has affected agricultural incomes in more than half of Afghanistan's provinces, and the forced return of more than 2 million Afghans from Iran and Pakistan, reducing the remittances they send back. I worked in Mexico in the 1990s. You know that Mexico has been on our minds for quite some time. How much money do Mexicans in USA send back to Mexico? Let's see if they know. From the US each year. Mexican immigrants in the United States send billions of dollars in remittances to Mexico each year. In 2024, they sent a record $64.7 billion I just want to put what they said about Afghanistan into context. What work did Afghan refugees do? I know the answer. In Pakistan and Iran during the Cold War. You see, after the Afghanistan got back in, and the United States, there was no war there, then there's no reason for Pakistan and Iran to continue to During the Cold War, Afghan refugees in Pakistan and Iran worked in low-wage casual labor sectors, such as construction and agriculture, to fill labor shortages and support themselves and their families, with some also utilizing their professional skills. Many refugees also relied on remittances from relatives in wealthier countries. When I was working at NC State in a certain department, one of the guys I knew was from Iran. At one time when I was living in Raleigh, I almost bought a used car from somebody who was working at a job at the university who was from Afghanistan. Many Afghanistan refugees in Pakistan took on casual labor jobs, often for wages lower than those of local Pakistanis who might have been considered for such jobs as beneath them. There's a big disruption in the United States now with agriculture because who's going to pick the strawberries and the peanuts and pick if we don't let all those migrant workers come across the borders illegally and work for way less than minimum wage. Now, I'm not criticizing anybody. People in Afghanistan are starving because relatives of theirs that fled during the war to Pakistan that pays shit wages, that's where they were getting money to survive. What does that tell you about the developmental state of Afghanistan, irrespective of the Taliban? The answer is that couple makes their living by breaking walnut shells. My first roommate in college was from India. He was a very young boy when his father was sent by a man who owned several textile mills to the United States to go to college, to the same college where we were then, where he got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in 3.5 years. Smart. And when he went back to India, they put him in charge of a mill with 10,000 people, a textile mill. But while he was in the United States, all paid for by the big mill owner, getting those degrees, his wife and at that point 3 children survived by making puris. You get a big loaf of dough from a bakery, you cut it into pieces, and you use a rolling pin, and you roll it out, and then you bring those back to the bakery, and they pay you for doing that. And that's how my first roommate in college survived as a 5-year-old in India before his father came back and became a big 10,000 person mill manager. Can you see how, in a certain way, my mind has already been prepped for understanding things like this? Did you know it exists? Hungry all the time. As we walked through the settlement in Shadi, people came out carrying their children. This woman came out who at age 2 cannot stand up. The child at age 2 can't stand. Another one, the son, is nearly 2 and he's unable to stand, meaning on his own. Nearly half of all Afghanistan children under age of 5 are stunted, according to the United Nations. In one of the mud and clay huts, so-and-so's 1-year-old son could barely hold himself up even while he's sitting. Another one doesn't have his teeth yet, so he has to eat bread soaked in tea, which his mother feeds him. Remember, this all started with the fact that in the last 24 hours, the Taliban has just cut Afghanistan off from the rest of the world other than what they directly control and censor, including all the banking. That's the implication. Does Afghanistan still produce cocaine? No. No, the South Americans have taken over the cocaine. Afghanistan does not produce cocaine. They used to. The country's drug trade centers on opiates, heroin and opium. Opiates. For years, Afghanistan was the world's leading producer of illicit opium and heroin. In 2022, the Taliban announced a ban on poppy cultivation, causing production to plummet, though some cultivation continues. Oh, you mean the main source of income in Afghanistan actually was the world's cocaine traffic? No, it was the opium traffic. And the Taliban probably doesn't allow that. Is it a mystery that the people in Afghanistan are starving? I'm not making fun of them. Now I'm going to give you one final story. We're going to go back a long way. We're going to go back before the Second World War. Okay? And it's about Afghanistan. Now, you've seen what I've kind of gone through and made certain kinds of connections. Is any of the fact that the Taliban acts the way it does, leave aside the religious aspect, is it any surprise that people are trapped into this kind of life? And could the future have been better? Many years ago, in the 1960s, I worked at a company called Rant. I was a chemical laboratory technician. I synthesized new organic molecules under the supervision of a senior chemist with a PhD. Actually, a couple of different ones. They were all extremely smart. And at a certain point, I decided that I was going to go in 1960s to Israel again. And a laboratory means a bunch of chemists and their technicians work under a laboratory head who helps direct the projects and the work. It's not a room. It refers to an organizational entity. And there was a certain lab head in the building that I'd gotten to know, and he was Jewish, and because I said I was going to Israel, he invited me to his home to meet his wife, who was also Jewish, as a goodbye dinner before I went off to Israel. And during that discussion that evening, I learned a little bit more about him. When he was in graduate school doing a PhD in chemistry, it was either just before the Second World War or just after, but I believe it was before. When he was doing his PhD, he lived next to the campus, university campus, in a multi-bedroom apartment, because grad students don't get paid very much money. And one of his apartment mates was a Muslim from Afghanistan. Oh. Now, he was in graduate school to learn chemistry, but the apartment mate was learning civil government and governance, government studies, civil administration. And his father, this Afghan's father, had sent him to the United States to get that education and preparation in order with the idea that he would take over what his father did back in Afghanistan when his father finally got too old. Now that doesn't sound exactly the way we do it here, but here's the punchline. When this guy who was the lab head asked his apartment mate, how did your father get to be the head man for, and then he knew how big the region of, not the whole of Afghanistan, but a local region in Afghanistan, let's say a valley with multiple villages. And his Afghan apartment mate said, my father's position is based on how many men, how many armed men he can assemble in an hour ready to fight under his command. We're not talking about a formal army. How many armed men he can assemble in an hour who are willing and able to fight under his father's command. And now I've explained to you everything about Afghanistan, past and present. Now, I don't think that long ago person's father was a Taliban. So what you should understand is the Taliban has systematically replaced all of those kinds of local people in order to impose a single central rule which no prior Afghanistan in the capital city ever had been able to do. See, I just let my mind wander. I see an article like this, Afghanistan telecom blackout as Taliban shuts off internet. And I think about all the, as remote as Afghanistan is, in some fashion, either through news or through personal contacts. So, oh, yeah. 1980, it's 1985. Last little thing. It's 1985. I came to Raleigh. I'm working at NC State. I'm working for a professor. And one day I learned that he's just been sued by an Afghanistan graduate student. What? Yeah, he's getting sued by an Afghanistan graduate student. What's going on? Oh, it's like this. He's failing his graduate studies. The United States government won't renew his student visa. He's been given an order to leave the country and return to Afghanistan. And he's suing me for discrimination on some technicality, so that under U.S. law, the U.S. government can't force him out of the country until his legal case in the federal courts is resolved. the real basis for the lawsuit is bullshit, but that's how he would be kept from being forced back to Afghanistan, where he doesn't want to go back anymore. Because he was hoping with his graduate degree he'd be able to go to South America or something like that. I'm just teaching you about Afghanistan. Steve AB4 out, just teaching you about Afghanistan. Put the pieces together yourself. Saying see you in 73.